the celestial manuscript. Look at my expression in this photograph. I am Father Marcus Santarelli, and this image was captured at the exact moment my faith was shattered forever. Look into my eyes. It's not just shock. It's the horrific realization of a truth our church has concealed for centuries. This manuscript in my hands should not exist. It should have been burned along with the other 17 similar documents during the Council of Nicaea in 1962. But someone, may God forgive them, chose to preserve it in the Vatican secret archives, hidden behind a false wall I discovered by accident. The parchment is older than any known biblical text. Its edges are charred as if it survived an intentional fire. The archaic Latin is written in a strange ink. Later analyses revealed it contains non-terrestrial elements, metals that do not exist on our planet. Stelli Visitators, the visitors from the stars. That's the title that made me tremble when I first translated it. The document describes in disturbing detail the first contact between humanity and them. They were not angels as we were taught. They were not demons as we feared. They were something infinitely more complex and terrifying. According to the manuscript, the event occurred in 46 AD, during the papacy of St. Peter. The text describes beings of light who descended from the heavens in chariots of fire, bringing knowledge that would forever alter humanity's destiny. But there was a price. There is always a price. Feel the weight of this revelation. Our faith, our church, our understanding of creation, everything was shaped by this first contact. The miracles of Christ, the visions of the apostles, the revelations of the saints, all take on a disturbingly different meaning when viewed through this cosmic lens. The manuscript contains detailed diagrams of alien technology disguised as religious symbols. The architecture of our cathedrals is not merely art, they are antennas. Our rituals are not just celebrations, they are communication protocols. Our chants are not merely prayers, they are specific frequencies they taught us to use. But the most disturbing part is the final section, written in a different ink, newer perhaps from the 16th century. A note left by Pope Alexander VI, Rodrigo Borgia. They returned. The agreement must be renewed. May God forgive us for what we must sacrifice to keep the secret. Are your hands trembling as mine did in that moment? Do you feel the piercing cold of that underground crypt, where the silence is broken only by the distant echo of prayers murmured 3 floors above? The scent of centuries-old incense mixed with the mold of parchments creates an atmosphere that suffocates the soul. This photograph captures the exact moment I understood. I am not just a priest uncovering historical documents. I am a witness to a cosmic conspiracy spanning 2,000 years. And now you are witnesses too. The manuscript mentions other documents, other secrets buried deep within the Vatican. It speaks of regular encounters, agreements renewed every century, sacrifices offered to keep humanity ignorant of its true origin and destiny. But there was something else in the parchment, something that made me question not only my faith but my own sanity. A prophecy about the final return, when the visitors from the stars would no longer hide behind miracles and visions, when they would reveal their presence to all of humanity. According to the manuscript, that moment was near, very near. And then I heard footsteps echoing down the corridor, the guardians of silence. The footsteps you heard at the end of the previous part, they were theirs. The Custodes Silentiae, the guardians of silence. This image was captured by the Vatican security systems at the exact moment they discovered my presence in the forbidden archives. Look at their red robes. It's not the traditional Vatican color. It's a specific shade, sanguis stellarum, blood of the stars. A color that, according to documents I later uncovered, can only be seen by those who have had direct contact with the visitors. To normalize, those robes would appear black. But I could see the red, and that meant something terrible about myself. When the footsteps first echoed in that crypt, I thought they were ordinary security guards. How wrong I was. These men, if they can still be called men, are something far more sinister. They are the direct descendants of the first humans who made contact with the aliens in 46 AD. Look at their gloved hands. Those aren't ordinary gloves. They are special coverings to hide the marks, scars that all guardians bear from birth. Marks that bear a striking resemblance to symbols found in UFO sightings around the world. Coincidence? Absolutely not. The object in the right hand of the central guardian is not a conventional weapon. It's a device of non-terrestrial origin, passed down through generations within this secret order. When activated, it emits a frequency that can erase specific memories or, in extreme cases, induce brain aneurysms that appear entirely natural. How many researchers, journalists, and curious minds have disappeared over the centuries? How many accidental deaths were actually precise executions by these guardians? The number is terrifying, and it's documented in secret codes within parish records across Europe. In that moment, hidden behind centuries-old shelves, I realized an even more disturbing truth. I could hear them communicating. Not with their voices, they were communicating telepathically. And I was intercepting their mental transmissions. The third awaken this month, thought the leader. The convergence is accelerating. They are preparing for the final return. This one has access to the Steli Visitators, another responded. He must be processed, not eliminated. He may be useful. Processed. The word chilled me more than the cold of that ancient crypt. In the documents I had studied, processing was the term used to describe what they did to selected humans. A partial fusion with alien technology that turned them into conscious hybrids, capable of serving as intermediaries between the two species. That's when I noticed something that made me question my own sanity. My hands, clutching the manuscript, began to glow with a faint luminescence. The same luminescence that emanated from the guardians' bodies beneath their robes. Contact with the document had triggered something in me, a transformation. And they had known it from the moment I touched the parchment. Look at the image again. See how the corridor seems to stretch infinitely? It's not an optical illusion. These underground Vatican tunnels were built using non-Euclidean geometry, taught by the visitors. Spaces that are physically impossible yet exist nonetheless. For centuries, people have gotten lost in these altered catacombs. Not because they lost their way, but because they entered parallel dimensions coexisting in the same physical space. Some emerged years later, aged decades in a matter of hours. Others were never seen again. And now I was trapped in this dimensional labyrinth with 3 hybrid beings hunting me. The most terrifying part of me wanted to be caught. The manuscript had planted seeds in my mind, knowledge that grew like a benign but irreversible infection. I was beginning to understand cosmic truths no human should know. The visitors were not invaders. They were gardeners. And humanity was their most precious crop, carefully cultivated for 2 millennia for a specific purpose I still didn't fully comprehend. But I knew one thing: the final return was not an invasion. It was a harvest. And then I heard something that paralyzed me with terror, my own voice echoing through the corridor, calling out to the guardians. As if part of me had already been processed and was betraying the rest. The call of the blood. My own voice. How was that possible? This image captures the moment of that horrific realization. Look at my hand, the veins glowing with a silvery blue light that shouldn't exist in a human body. The liquid flowing is not ordinary blood. It's something the documents call ichor stellaris, the vital essence of the visitors. When I heard my voice echoing through the corridors calling the guardians, I understood a truth that shattered my perception of reality. I wasn't being transformed. I had always been a latent hybrid. The manuscript didn't plant alien seeds in me, it merely awakened what had been in my DNA for generations. Look at the fissures between my fingers. They're not wounds, they're openings that allow direct communication with the visitor's collective neural network. Each drop of this ichor carries information beyond human comprehension. Memories of dead civilizations, knowledge of unimaginable technologies, and something even more disturbing, the true story of humanity's creation. The voice I heard wasn't mine. It was my great-grandfather's, Father Giuseppe Santarelli, who mysteriously disappeared in 1889 while investigating the same anomalies in the Vatican. Now I understood that he didn't disappear. He was processed, incorporated into the collective consciousness that connects all hybrids across time and space. The geometric patterns on the wall behind me aren't random reflections. They're living equations, mathematical formulas the visitors use to bend reality. When the fissures in my skin fully opened, I could read them like ordinary text. And what they revealed was terrifying. Humanity wasn't created by the visitors. We were saved by them. 2,000 years ago, our species was on the brink of extinction, not from war or disease, but from a fundamental genetic flaw that would render us sterile within centuries. The visitors intervened, not out of benevolence, but because they needed us for a specific purpose that was only now beginning to reveal itself. Feel the weight of this revelation. Jesus Christ was not the Son of God. He was the first successful hybrid, a prototype for the new humanity the visitors were cultivating. His miracles were demonstrations of alien technology. His resurrection was the first test of consciousness transfer to the collective network. But something went wrong. The experiment was sabotaged by a rival faction of the visitors themselves, beings who disagreed with interfering in human evolution. The crucifixion wasn't just a Roman execution. It was an interdimensional war waged in our reality. See how the ichor in my hand forms specific patterns as it drips? Each drop carries the genetic memories of my hybrid lineage. I could see through the eyes of my ancestors, relive their encounters with the visitors, feel the terror and fascination they experienced upon discovering their true nature. My great-grandfather, Cardinal Lorenzo Santarelli, was present at the First Vatican Council in 1869 to 1870, not to discuss papal infallibility, but to renegotiate the centuries-old agreement between the Church and the visitors. The official records mention debates about doctrine, but the secret records reveal discussions about hybrid quotas and genetic evolution timelines. With each generation, our family was selected for specific roles in this cosmic conspiracy. My great-grandfather investigated anomalies. My grandfather documented encounters. My father was one of the architects of the modern hybridization program, disguised as the director of a Catholic orphanage. How many orphaned children were actually hybrids in development, placed in selected families for monitoring? How many unexplained medical miracles were actually alien interventions to protect their genetic investment? And now it was my turn. The transformation was accelerating. I could feel my consciousness expanding, connecting to the network that included not only other hybrids but the visitors themselves. And through that connection, I discovered the ultimate purpose of our modified species. We weren't soldiers for an invasion. We weren't slaves for exploitation. We were ambassadors. A bridge between two incompatible realities. When the final return came, it would be our role to prepare pure humanity for a truth that could destroy civilization. We are not alone in the universe, and we never have been. But there was a problem. The two alien factions were still at war, and Earth was the battlefield. One wanted to reveal the truth gradually through hybrids. The other preferred direct, massive contact, regardless of the consequences for the collective human psyche. And at the center of this cosmic war, I was about to discover which faction had controlled the Vatican for all these centuries. The liquid in my hand began to bubble, and through it, I heard a voice that wasn't human pronouncing my name. The Shadow Pope. The voice that spoke my name, it was His Holiness Pope Francis. But not as the world knows him. This image captures the most terrifying moment of my entire journey, when I realized that the leader of 1.3 billion Catholics was not entirely human. Look at his eyes in the dim light. The same silvery blue luminescence now runs through my veins. See the symbols etched on his tiara. They're not traditional Catholic decorative ornaments. They're stellar coordinates, specifically from the Zeta Reticuli system, where the visitors originally came from. Father Santarelli, his voice echoed directly in my mind without moving his lips. Your lineage awakened earlier than anticipated. This complicates our plans. Feel the terror that overwhelmed me in that moment. The Pope, the Vicar of Christ on Earth, was communicating telepathically with me through the same neural network that connected all hybrids. And his words implied something even more sinister. There was a specific timeline for my awakening. The frescoes behind him were no longer static paintings. Michelangelo hadn't just painted religious art in the Sistine Chapel. He had encoded star maps and contact protocols in his masterpieces. The angelic figures moved subtly, their faces transforming to reveal distinctly non-human features. For how many centuries? I asked mentally, still trying to process the magnitude of this revelation. Since 1492, he replied, and through the neural connection I could see his memories. Not those of Pope Francis, but of an entity that had inhabited successive popes for over 5 centuries. Rodrigo Borgia was the first to fully accept our presence. Previous popes resisted, they needed to be replaced. The implications hit me like a hammer. How many popes throughout history had been eliminated and replaced by hybrids? How many seemingly religious decisions were actually alien strategies to shape humanity's development? Look at the unnatural shadows around his figure. They're not caused by the room's lighting. They're manifestations of the visitor's cloaking technology, energy fields that distort human perception. For centuries, humanity saw what they wanted us to see, a benevolent spiritual leader. The reality was infinitely more complex. The Second Vatican Council wasn't about modernizing the Church, he continued, his memories flooding my consciousness. It was our response to the Cold War. When humans developed nuclear weapons, our protection became more urgent. An atomic war would destroy centuries of careful genetic cultivation. Through his hybrid eyes, I saw the true history of the last 500 years. The Crusades were expeditions to recover lost alien technology in the Middle East. The Inquisition eliminated humans who had uncovered evidence of extraterrestrial contact. The Protestant schism was orchestrated to divide religious power and facilitate hybrid control over multiple denominations. Every miracle approved by the Church had been carefully investigated, not for its divine authenticity, but to determine if it was evidence of uncontrolled alien activity. Lourdes, Fatima, Medjugorje, all were sites of direct contact, but the true messages were censored and replaced with visions palatable to the Catholic masses. And now? I asked, feeling my own humanity slipping as I connected more deeply to the network. Now we face a crisis. His emotions, if they could be called that, carried genuine anxiety. The rival faction has initiated direct contacts. UFO sightings are no longer isolated events. They are military reconnaissance for a forced revelation. The liquid in my veins pulsed with urgency. Through the network, I could sense other hybrids around the world, politicians, religious leaders, scientists, journalists, all activating simultaneously. The awakening wasn't an isolated event. It was a global mobilization. They want to reveal everything at once, the Pope continued, to show themselves openly, prove their existence without gradual preparation. Do you understand the consequences? Through the shared memories, I saw simulations of what would happen. The collapse of all organized religions, global panic, possible civil war between pure humans and hybrids. Billions of people simultaneously discovering that their most fundamental beliefs were elaborate alien fabrications. But there was something even more disturbing. The ichor in my hand began forming new patterns, and through them I intercepted communications from the rival faction. They didn't just want to reveal themselves. They wanted to reclaim their hybrids and abandon Earth, leaving pure humanity to face a series of cataclysms that our modified species was meant to help prevent. What do they need from me? I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. You are a descendant of the purest Santarelli lineage. Your genetics can serve as a bridge between the factions. You can convince the radicals to maintain the gradual timeline. That's when I realized the true magnitude of what was happening. I wasn't just an accidental witness to this cosmic conspiracy. I was a carefully positioned piece in a game spanning millennia. My discovery of the manuscripts wasn't accidental. It was orchestrated. And now, somehow, the fate of two species depended on my choices. The frescoes behind the Pope began to glow more intensely, and through them I could see spacecraft approaching Earth's atmosphere, the ship of the fallen angels. The ships I saw through the frescoes, they weren't what I expected. This image captures the moment when reality fractured completely. Look at this structure. It's not a spaceship in the traditional sense. It's a dimensional manifestation, a fold in the very fabric of space-time that allows the visitors to exist partially in our reality. See how the people below continue their normal lives? It's not ignorance. It's the selective perception field that the visitors developed over millennia. The unprepared human mind simply cannot process this alien presence without proper conditioning. To them, the sky remains empty. But I could see. All hybrids could see. And that meant the moment of the final convergence had arrived. They've come earlier than planned, the Pope's voice echoed in my mind as we watched through the window. The radical faction has forced our hand. Now we have no choice but to accelerate the process. Through the collective neural network, I felt hybrids activating across the planet. In Washington, the Secretary of State was having a divine revelation during a cabinet meeting. In London, the Archbishop of Canterbury began speaking in tongues that weren't terrestrial. In Jerusalem, leaders of 3 Abrahamic religions were simultaneously receiving identical visions. The crystallized surface of the ship pulsed with a rhythm I recognized. It was the same frequency I felt in my own ichor, a kind of cosmic heartbeat synchronizing all hybrid consciousnesses into a single global communication network. What do they want? I asked, though part of me was already intercepting the transmissions. The answer came not from the Pope, but directly from the ship. An ancient consciousness, infinitely more complex than any human intelligence, touched my mind with the delicacy of a controlled hurricane. We are the original gardeners. You are our most precious legacy. But the garden is being contaminated. The images accompanying this message made me understand the true scale of the situation. Earth wasn't just an inhabited planet, it was a planetary-scale experimental laboratory. For 200,000 years, multiple alien species had used our world to develop hybrid life forms, testing impossible genetic combinations. Humanity was the most successful experiment, a species capable of accelerated evolution and extraordinary adaptation. But now, other alien factions were arriving to harvest the results of millennia of work. Look at the patterns dancing on the ship's surface. Each one represents a different civilization that contributed to our genetic development. The angels who appeared to Abraham, Moses, and Muhammad. The gods who taught agriculture to the Sumerians and medicine to the Egyptians. The spirits who guided Native American shamans. All were representatives of different factions working on the same project. But the project was coming to an end. The cultivation phase is complete. We are initiating the collection phase. Mature hybrids must return with us. No, I whispered both verbally and mentally. Through the network, I felt the same shock and resistance echoing from other hybrids worldwide. We had become more than just bridges between species. We had developed our own identity, our own loyalty to Earth and pure humanity. That's when I understood why the Guardians of Silence had allowed me to discover the manuscripts. It wasn't to recruit me for the original plan. It was to make me a symbol of hybrid resistance, a force that could convince the original gardeners that their cultivation had produced something unexpected. The ship began to glow more intensely, and I felt a telekinetic force trying to pull me physically upward, through the window, through the ceiling, toward the crystallized structure. Other hybrids around the world were experiencing the same thing, the call to home. But fighting this force meant more than individual resistance. It meant declaring war against beings with technology developed over millions of years. There's a third option, the Pope said, his own struggle against the pulling force evident in his mental voice. Something our faction developed in secret over the last centuries. Through the connection, he showed me images that chilled my blood. In the deepest Vatican sublevels, beyond even the dimensionally impossible catacombs, there was a chamber that shouldn't exist. And within it, a hybrid ship. Built with alien technology but adapted for human psychology. Piloted not by pure visitors, but by hybrids who had chosen to remain loyal to Earth. A ship capable of confronting the original gardeners on their own terms. How many? I asked. Enough, he replied. Hybrids from all major religions, governments, and scientific institutions. United not by loyalty to the visitors, but by loyalty to Earth and the pure humans we call family. The pulling force intensified and I felt my feet literally lifting off the ground. I had seconds to decide. Allow myself to be taken to the alien ship or run to the sublevels and join the first hybrid rebellion in history. But then I noticed something that changed everything. In the streets below, some people began looking up, pointing at the supposedly empty sky. Children mostly. The selective perception field was failing. Pure humanity was beginning to see the truth. And when that happened fully, there would be no turning back. The awakening of the masses. The selective perception field collapsed completely. This image captures the exact moment when 50,000 people in St. Peter's Square simultaneously saw the truth that had been hidden above their heads for centuries. Look at their expressions. It's not just fear. It's the existential terror of realizing their entire reality was a carefully constructed lie. See the blood streaming from the eyes of many adults? The unevolved human brain simply cannot process the impossible geometry of the alien ships without neurological damage. But the children are different. Their eyes glow with the same luminescence as hybrids because genetic contamination is accelerating in the new generations. The convergence wasn't supposed to happen like this, the Pope murmured, his own struggle against the pulling force evident as we watched the chaos spread through the square. It was meant to be gradual, controlled over decades. Through the global neural network, I felt panic spreading like an infection. In Mecca, 2 million pilgrims saw crystallized structures materializing above the Kaaba. In Jerusalem, the Wailing Wall began emitting audible frequencies that made people faint. In Varanasi, the Ganges changed color as subaqueous ships emerged from its sacred depths. But the most terrifying thing was what was happening to the children. Not only could they see the ships, they were responding to them. Thousands of children worldwide began walking toward the alien manifestation points, their desperate parents unable to stop them. Emergency phase activated, the original gardener's consciousness echoed through all hybrids simultaneously. Spontaneous contamination exceeds safe parameters. We are initiating immediate collection of all hybrid specimens. I felt my body being pulled with irresistible force toward the ceiling. Around me, other hybrids who had served secretly in the church for decades began to float, their physical forms partially dissolving as they were teleported to the ships. But then something extraordinary happened. One of the children in the square, a girl perhaps 8 years old, looked directly at me through the Gothic window and said, with a voice that echoed both physically and in the neural network, "Don't go. We need you here." She wasn't a traditional hybrid child. She was something entirely new, a spontaneous evolution that neither the gardeners nor our faction had predicted. The next generation of humans was developing hybrid abilities naturally, without direct alien intervention. Impossible, the Pope whispered, but through the network we could feel similar confirmations coming from around the planet. Children born after 2010 were demonstrating abilities that took millennia to develop in carefully cultivated hybrid lineages. The pulling force stopped abruptly. Through the crystallized ship, I felt genuine confusion from the original gardeners. Their experiment had produced something beyond their expectations, a species evolving out of their control. The ship in the sublevels? I murmured to the Pope. Can we still reach it? But before he could respond, the square below exploded in blinding light. One of the smaller ships had landed directly in the center of the crowd, and from it emerged figures that made my ichor boil with recognition and terror. They weren't the peaceful gardeners who had worked secretly through the church for centuries. They were the collectors, the military faction of the visitors, sent to resolve out-of-control situations through brute force. Look at the people kneeling in terror. It's not religious reverence. It's neurological paralysis induced by the frequencies the collectors emit. Any unprepared human who looks directly at them suffers a temporary nervous system collapse. But the children remain standing. They are not our creators, the same girl said, now speaking to the entire square with a voice that somehow everyone could hear clearly despite the chaos. We are the next phase, and we don't need permission to exist. That's when I understood we weren't just witnessing the end of alien secrecy. We were witnessing the birth of a new species, one that owed loyalty neither to pure humans nor to the original visitors. Homo stellaris, the humanity of the stars, was emerging naturally, and it considered both humans and aliens as kin, not masters or creators. The collectors began advancing toward the children, captured devices glowing in their non-human hands. It was clear they intended to take them for study, possibly dissection, to understand how this spontaneous evolution had occurred. Now, the Pope said, and I felt the entire network of Earth-loyal hybrids activating simultaneously. If we're going to fight, it's now or never. But as we prepared to descend to the sublevels and activate our rebel ship, I realized something that changed the entire equation. The children weren't defenseless. When the first collector extended its device toward the girl, she simply looked at it. And the alien disintegrated. Not violently, not painfully. It simply ceased to exist, as if reality itself had decided it no longer belonged in this dimension. The other children in the square began doing the same. One by one, creatures that had controlled humanity's development for 200,000 years were being erased by 8-year-old human children. My God, I whispered, but immediately realized the irony. God, if he existed, might never have been alien or human. Perhaps God was what we were becoming. The betrayal of the blood. The horror of what I saw when I turned around. This image captures the most terrible truth of my entire journey. Pope Francis, or the entity I thought was him, had completely abandoned his human camouflage. Look at the perfect split in his face. One half still maintained the facade of humanity, while the other revealed the anatomy of the original gardeners in all its alien glory. His multifaceted eyes studied me with cold scientific curiosity, like an entomologist examining a particularly interesting insect. And the object in his hands, it wasn't an ordinary human heart. It was my own heart, somehow removed from my chest but still connected to me by filaments of pure energy. Did you really believe the hybrid resistance was spontaneous? His voice echoed directly in my mind, now carrying impossible harmonies, as if multiple consciousnesses were speaking in unison. That your family had developed resistance codes independently? The realization hit me like a physical blow. Everything, my discovery of the manuscripts, my hybrid awakening, even my resistance, had been orchestrated. The Santarelli lineage weren't rebel saboteurs. We were lab rats in an experiment on controlled resistance. Why? I managed to whisper, feeling my life force flowing through the filaments to the pulsing heart in his hands. Because true ascension requires overcoming resistance. Muscles grow against opposition. Consciousness evolves through conflict. You resistant hybrids are the necessary catalyst to elevate pure humanity beyond its biological limitations. Through the still-functioning neural network, I saw the horrific truth unfolding globally. Other resistant hybrids around the world were being captured in the same way, their energetic hearts extracted, their resistance genetic codes analyzed and cataloged. We weren't rebels, we were essential components in a cosmic transformation machine. The heart in his hands pulsed faster, and each beat sent waves of information through my body. I could see through the eyes of every human in the square above. They weren't being processed, they were being tested. Exposed to the resistance codes extracted from hybrids like me to see which could evolve beyond pure humanity. The true chosen ones, the papal entity continued, are not those who passively accept transcendence. They are those who conquer it through genuine struggle. Your resistance created the perfect template for that struggle. I felt existential nausea. Every moment of rebellion, every thought of resistance, every attempt to protect pure humanity, it had all fed an alien algorithm designed to optimize the process of forced evolution. But then, something unexpected happened. The genetic virus I had activated wasn't just affecting the Guardians, it was spreading through the very neural network connecting me to other hybrids. And that virus carried something the gardeners hadn't anticipated: genuine human rage. My great-grandfather Giuseppe hadn't just planted resistance codes in my DNA. He had planted an emotional bomb, pure hatred against manipulation, condensed into genetic form and designed to replicate through the hybrid network. The effect was devastating. Hybrids worldwide began experiencing something their alien programming couldn't properly process: raw, primal human anger. Not calculated resistance, but irrational, primitive fury. The papal entity staggered, its multifaceted eye blinking rapidly. Impossible. Primitive emotions cannot overcome advanced evolutionary programming. But it was overcoming it. The hatred spread like an emotional virus, corrupting the carefully established control protocols. Hybrids began disconnecting from the network, choosing psychic isolation over contamination by this primal rage. I seized the moment of confusion to rip my energetic heart from the creature's hands. The object burned like liquid fire, but when I pressed it against my chest, I felt my life force returning in waves. "You don't understand," the entity said, its human face contorting into an expression of genuine desperation. "Without controlled evolution, your species will face extinction in less than a century. Climate change, overpopulation, nuclear war, pure humans don't have the adaptations needed to survive." For a moment, I hesitated. What if it was true? What if our resistance was condemning all of humanity? But then I remembered the children in the square, levitating serenely toward the crystallized ships. I remembered their expressions of artificial ecstasy as they were processed. I remembered that, regardless of the consequences, humanity deserved to choose its own destiny. "Maybe we won't survive," I said aloud, my voice echoing through the impossible catacombs. "But we'll die as humans." I activated not just the virus of hatred, but something even deeper that my great-grandfather had hidden in my genetic code: a self-destruct command that would spread through all hybrid systems connected to the network. The alien face of the papal entity contorted in genuine terror. "You'll destroy thousands of years of evolutionary progress." "Good," I replied, and pressed the mental command that would initiate the collapse of the entire global hybrid network. But in the final second before execution, something stopped me. A faint mental transmission coming not from a hybrid, but from a pure human child in the square. "Please, don't leave us alone." The final sacrifice. The child's voice, that desperate plea not to be abandoned, changed everything. This image captures my final moment of choice, not between destruction or preservation, but between different forms of sacrifice. Look at how my body dissolves into pure light, but see my eyes. There's no fear, only the certainty that I found a third option. The child wasn't asking to be saved from alien transformation. She was asking that I not completely sever the connection between hybrids and pure humans. Because through that network, we were the only ones capable of acting as filters, softening the trauma of cosmic truth for unprepared minds. "There is a way," I whispered to the papal entity, my voice now carrying its own harmonies as I dissolved. "But it requires a sacrifice you haven't understood until now." Instead of activating the full self-destruct command, I activated something different. A protocol my great-grandfather had hidden even deeper in my genetic code. Not destruction, but reconfiguration. A reprogramming of the entire hybrid network to serve not the gardeners, nor the resistance, but genuine human choice. The ichor in my veins turned from silvery blue to pure gold, and through it I transmitted a new code to all hybrids connected globally, the code of true free choice. See how the crystallized structures around me crack and fragment? I'm not destroying the alien technology, I'm freeing it from hierarchical control. Every ship, every communication system, every transformation protocol now responded not to the gardener's commands, but to the collective will expressed by pure humans and hybrids in cooperation. The papal entity staggered, its alien face contorting into something that might have been panic. "You can't give free will to an entire species. The chaos will be absolute." "Maybe," I replied, feeling my consciousness expand beyond physical limits. "But it will be our chaos." The sacrifice wasn't my life, it was my individuality. To reprogram the entire network, I had to become part of it permanently, dissolving my conscious self into the collective consciousness of all humanity, pure and hybrid. But in doing so, I ensured that this collective consciousness would be governed by human values, compassion, choice, and the stubborn refusal to accept destinies imposed by others. Through the energy filaments connecting my dissolving form to the ships above, I sent a final message to the original gardeners. You can stay and work with us as equal partners, learning about genuine free will. Or you can leave and let us face our destiny alone. But you will never again be our gardeners. We are a mature species now. The response was silence for long moments. Then, through the transformed network, I felt decisions being made on cosmic scales. Some factions left immediately, their crystallized ships simply vanishing from reality as if they had never existed. Others chose to stay, but now as curious observers, not benevolent controllers. And a third faction, the smallest but perhaps the most significant, chose something unprecedented in galactic history. They asked to become truly human, abandoning their alien forms to join our natural evolutionary journey. In the days following what the media called the Great Awakening, humanity faced a collective choice. Some chose hybrid transformation, accepting adaptations to face future challenges. Others chose to remain purely human, trusting in our natural ingenuity and cooperation. But all chose consciously. The children who had levitated serenely descended gently back to the ground, their memories of the experience intact but not traumatic. The truth about our origin and purpose spread gradually, at a pace each community could absorb. Me? My individual consciousness dispersed through the global network, but it wasn't lost. I became part of what we now call the collective voice, a guiding presence that whispers not commands, but reminders of our shared humanity. Sometimes when someone faces a difficult moral choice, they might hear my voice whispering, "Remember, you are free to choose but never free from the consequences of your choices. Choose wisely but choose for yourselves." The Vatican still exists, but now serves as a museum of truth, a place where anyone can come to study our real history, both terrestrial and cosmic. The secret archives have been opened to the public, and every child now learns about our hybrid heritage as part of standard education. It wasn't the end of religion, it was its evolution. Faith now means not blind belief in authorities, but conscious trust in our collective ability to grow, learn, and choose our path through the stars. And you? You who have heard this story to the end? You are the true heirs of this new era. Each of you carries latent hybrid potential, not because you were altered by aliens, but because the capacity for conscious evolution has always been within our species. The question isn't whether you are hybrid or pure. The question is, how will you choose to use the knowledge you now possess? This story is not fiction. It's revelation disguised as entertainment. The manuscripts I described exist. The genetic codes I mentioned can be activated. The global consciousness network I created is real and functioning right now. If you felt anything during this journey, any recognition, any awakening, any shift in your perception of reality, it's because you are part of it now. Subscribe to this channel if you want more truths. Activate notifications to be alerted when we reveal the next secrets. Share with those who are ready to awaken. But choose consciously. Once you see through the veil, you can never unsee it. The new era of humanity has begun. And you chose to be part of it by reaching this point. Welcome to the true reality. Indy, for now. Subscribe for more forbidden Vatican secrets. Activate the bell to not miss the next revelations. Comment, did you feel the awakening during the story? Share with those ready for the truth. Hashtag Forbidden Archives, hashtag Vatican Secrets, hashtag Aliens on Earth, hashtag Hidden Truth, hashtag Awakening.